Thank you so much for being here with us today, Rozalin.
You're so well.
So let's get started with a question I have. I know, and everybody knows, you and your husband, Dr. Doug Graham, are leaders in the raw food movement and beyond. Are there any fundamental differences in your messages?
Essentially, we're coming from pretty much the same place, Shannon. That's one of the wonderful things about our relationship, is that we resonate on that real deeper level where things matter and issues matter. My husband really has, over the years, become progressively more and more involved in the more pure nutritional side of things connected with that and sport. Whereas for myself, I've become more connected to the psychological and emotional well-being of people, and of recent times particularly involved in trying to help others understand a little bit more about that side of things when it comes to children and parenting issues.
Beautiful.
So we come from the same place.
You complement each other so well.
It's a little bit like we're a tree. We both come from the same trunk, but we branch off in different directions.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, so many mothers listening today would really wish for that kind of relationship to support their own mothering and their own, experiences. And so many mothers are struggling. They're not fully even empowered in their own womanhood, never mind their partnership. And sometimes they are with partners who aren't very supportive of real health. And sometimes we make compromises in regards to our children for the sake of peace in the home. So what do you feel women most need to do to support themselves as mothers in the raw lifestyle?
Well, I think first and foremost, Shannon, the most important thing for women is to connect with and embrace their true power as women. Now, in our society, a lot of precious qualities are very much devalued and undermined. For example, the simple business of being a mother is, there is no greater calling in the human experience, in my opinion, because after all, you are blessed with a little cherub coming straight from the spirit world into your arms in complete innocence and looking for guidance through life. A woman's ability to be the mothership, if you like, for such a little wandling who's desperately reaching out for help and guidance. It's such an incredibly powerful position to be in, and our society so much undermines this position. And likewise, if a woman says that she is a full-time mum, very often that is looked upon as being some kind of cop-out, some kind of, oh, well, you're not really doing much then, or, you're totally dependent upon your husband, and isn't that equivalent to sponging? And I've heard the most incredible comments made about women who are full-time mothers. Our whole society and culture is set up to really consider the workforce to be the most valuable place to be, and the home and the creation of a peaceful and nurturing home to be something which, quite honestly, is considered a bit of a sideline compared to mainstream businesses, companies and corporate situations. Whereas in fact the home is the literal roots of people and the family as a whole. So I think for a woman who is feeling challenged, particularly if she's making lifestyle and dietary choices that are different to other people, it would really behoove her to go right back to basics, connect with the immense power of her feminine spirit, the incredible role that she plays in society, and most importantly of all, although this does apply to everybody, not just mothers, to never ever believe that they personally don't make a difference in the world, because nothing could be more untrue. Every individual has such a vital role to play in the creation of the future of all of us on this planet.
Absolutely. And as you said, women's roles are so devalued. And then when we're in a partnership that doesn't understand our fierceness and our need to raise our children a certain way. As you know, many of us are the spiritual leaders in our home as women, and when our partners aren't on the same page, especially when it comes to things like child rearing and how to have the cornerstones of a healthy mothering, say with diet, we just don't have the support in society or often even in our own relationships. So if a woman wants to raise her child raw or more raw, and nobody in her family, her husband's family, even her own family understands this, how can she empower herself? And should she be laying down the law in her own home in regards to the diet when she knows how important it is?
Well, my answer to that, Shannon, perhaps goes a little deeper than you might have expected, in that I think there is a common condition amongst the majority of individuals, of westernized people particularly, that they live with all of their lives, and that condition has arisen from their lack of having their needs met as a tiny one, as a child, and as a result having always been in the need of the approval of others throughout their life, and even as an adult, in some cases particularly as an adult. If a child is given reason to doubt that it is loved unconditionally, then that child is going to grow up desperately in need of constant approval, because the little child within is always needing that affirmation of approval in order to literally survive and not perish. Now, if as adults we're carrying this energy within us of needing approval from our friends, our colleagues at work, and ultimately our spouse, our partner, or the rest of our family, then what happens when we then have a child is that we literally need to go through our own birthing, in a sense. We need to, how can I put this? We actually need to transcend this neediness for approval that we've carried with us all of our lives. We need to be born into a new empowered motherhood, whereupon we really believe and know for sure that the only person's approval we ever really truly need of ourselves is our own. And ultimately that is what's going to leave a person either able to sleep at night or really a very distressed individual.
See, I agree, and I think it's so profound what you're saying, and it does go back to us. It goes back to us as women and the space that we hold. Now, my question is, when we come to the raw diet ourselves, so many of us are experiencing almost a spiritual awakening, and we come more into our power, our feminine power, I believe, as well. And so if we have found ourselves in a partnership that maybe, doesn't totally, it hasn't evolved to the point where we have, say, it's fine to take the responsibility for the children and the diet, for example. And I have a saying, the one who has the responsibility has the authority. So I always believe if the women are feeding the children, then it really is their authority. They have a right to say, this is what I'm going to do. Even if the husband is a meat eater or doesn't totally understand and hasn't really taken the time to educate himself or just doesn't agree. But what about the peace and the harmony in the home? Because the children really do live in our energy. So I'm wondering, what advice would you give to women as they are evolving and as they are coming into their own power, and now they have a child and they want to feed this child a certain way? How can they do it when there's that conflict? What do you recommend?
I need to apologize, Shannon, because I do realize you essentially asked me this question 3 times, and 3 times I've gone off on a sort of an indirect...
Oh, no, it's all perfect.
It is a difficult situation, there is no question about that, when the partners have differing opinions on any aspect of how a child should be raised, including, of course, what they should be fed and so on and so forth. I think the word comes to mind, to me, is respect. And I think that what is necessary is for the partners to heighten their respect for each other and each other's wishes, and to also examine what truly they're looking for in relation to the upbringing of their child. Now, when I say that, what I'm relating to is the concept of bringing up a child so that it feels, for example, included within the whole community as some kind of normal, can I put it that way, normal child in a normal family, doing normal things and accepted by everybody around them. Or are they looking for actually what is best for that child in terms of its health and its long-term well-being? Now, there is certainly truth in the fact that if a child is going to a school, well, we're actually not in that situation because we're homeschooling Francesca, it doesn't arise, thankfully for us, but for a child who's going into a school environment, there's no question that if they are doing something very different, and it doesn't necessarily need to be diet, it may be that they, in their family they shave their heads, or in their family they wear different clothes, that child will suffer as a result of that, because within the structure of that child's social circles, there's going to be a need for them to conform to what the other children are doing. There is certainly an argument to say, well, how do you cope with that sort of situation? That then comes down to how powerfully that child has become convinced that what they do in their family is absolutely right for them, and it will not be at all fazed by other children commenting on it, particularly if they've been prepped properly by their parents. Between the spouses, or the partners, of course, this is a different issue when you have one partner who is really, perhaps, as you say, a mainstream consumer, who hasn't done the research and so on, and really doesn't, have any idea of why fully their partner is suggesting this what may seem a very strange diet. On that key note, I would say that the best approach is to, as you put it yourself, express that the mother in this case, I think you were saying, has done the research, found out the information, and has come up with a really solid case for why a raw vegan diet is preferable. And I would suggest that she respectfully suggests to her spouse that he should go out and do an equal amount of research and come up with a very solid case that eating a mainstream diet takes their child towards long-term health and vibrant well-being and away from the classic chronic degenerative diseases that are killing our society thousandfold every day.
I think that's great because I think men would like that. I mean, to be challenged that way, it would kind of respect them, but it would respect the mother, too, to say, well, I've done this much, let's see what you put on the table before I change my position. So until they can, I guess there really is no argument.
Exactly, and the whole point is that either they just won't get around to it because they just can't, quite frankly, be bothered.
Or they'll never be able to be convincing.
Or they will try, and I mean, every argument for a standard diet has so many holes in it, it's like a leaking sieve.
Exactly.
And it can be picked up really easily, but at least that way there has been a level of respect shown.
Wow.
It's still like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I thank you for going into that, and we took a long course to get to that. But I loved everything you said, because everything you say really speaks to the dignity and the profound responsibility that we have as mothers to these beautiful, precious spirits that are entrusted to us. So I really believe that women today need to just, live more in that. And I love how you speak. Tira and I were having a conversation. I did a bit of preparation for this and was saying, how do I interview this woman? And Tira, says, yeah, the female version of Buddha. And, in preparation, I had to sort of treat myself with some honor today and pamper myself, and I actually took a rose petal bath, which I never do in the middle of the day, because I wanted to be so centered, to talk to you. But I think all women want to hear these words that you have, because we just don't get a chance to hear these things on a regular basis, and we're not filled up with ourselves enough.
Well, thank you, Shannon, and I truly feel equally as honoured to be invited to speak with you and to be speaking with you right now, and that is a sincere expression of how I feel.
Thank you. That is